League of Legends is a game that has been around for quite some time, and in 2024 it will mark 15 years, which is quite impressive for a game that survives mostly on luck skins. Jokes aside, League of Legends has always had a very unique art direction, aiming to stand out in this huge MOBA market. There are all kinds of champion designs, so this video is about the best ones Riot has ever made. Keep in mind that this is not a ranking, so there won't be like first or second place, just some cool designs. Also, if a champion isn't mentioned here, it doesn't mean that their design is bad. I will probably make more parts of this video if it goes well. But anyway, with that explained, let's start with Bard. Bard is a champion described in the lore as a cosmic wanderer, a mysterious being who travels the universe to protect magical objects and artifacts of great importance to the balance. And what makes him capable of doing this is his extreme speed and ability to create portals between dimensions. He's extremely powerful, but never uses his ability to harm others, only to protect. And this is something you can see in his appearance. When you take a look at him, you can tell that he has a kind of cozy, non-hostile vibe, like he's big, furry, and even a little cute, you know? His clothes gives him an air of mystery, while you can tell that he's not going to hurt you. Also, his body is just a bunch of clothing pieces he's likely picked up along the way, probably trying to imitate a human in the most basic way possible, but failing miserably in the details. You can see that he has no feet, his hands are massive, and his face is just the most basic shape of a face there is, which creates this pareidolia effect. His name, Bard, comes from his concept, which is, well, a bard. The key element is his flute. As you can see in the concepts, there were several versions of Bard's instrument before they settled on the flute, and honestly they all fit him really well. Bard is a very musical being, both in lore and in-game. He even communicates through sounds, as if speaking a language we can't understand. Moreover, when he collects chimes across the map, the more you gather, the louder and more varied the music becomes. His whole concept is incredibly well done because while he comes across as a harmless and peaceful entity, he also exudes this cosmic aura that makes you able to tell that he's awesome. Now let's talk about Ekko. A lot of people might say, oh, but Ekko is just a regular human, there's nothing that special about his design. And yeah, at first glance you might have that opinion. But here's the thing, just by looking at him you can tell everything about him. His lore says he's a poor kid from Zaun, but also a prodigious inventor who created a machine capable of rewinding time using just scrap and leftover hextech crystals. Much of Zaun's concept revolves around creating things from Piltover's leftovers, things that the one from Piltovers, who have all that, you know, privileged stuff, couldn't create themselves. And Ekko is basically the embodiment of it. He basically finds creative solutions no matter how difficult the situation is. He has this punk haircut that reflects who Ekko is, and you can see this in Arcane as well. He wears these simple clothes that give off an inventor vibe, like with the goggles that are on his neck. In his early concept, Riot experimented with different clothing, styles, and hairstyles. The clock hand he used for weapon, for example, went through many different versions before the final one. And in my opinion, his arcane design takes what was already good and makes it perfect. They made his hair look like in the true damage skin, they added a trench coat to make him appear bigger since he's the leader of the Firelights, and made his weapon look more like a clock gear. Also, his face paint resembles an hourglass, further reinforcing his connection with time. Overall, he's a very iconic and beloved character, even more after Arcane. And if you want to be as beloved as Ekko, don't forget to like and subscribe. Moving on to the next one, we have Tahm Kench. He perfectly embodies the idea of a manipulator you shouldn't trust under any circumstances. He dresses like a loan shark, or just general people that does shady jobs. In his lore, he's a demon who grants favors and fulfill wishes in exchange for something of equal value, starting off small and gradually increasing until the person has to give up everything they own. He's the demon of vices. A perfect example of what I said in his lore is the story where he helped an inventor from Piltover come up with ideas in exchange for small parts of her body, starting with just a hair strand, then a finger, until she had nothing left to give, and then he devoured her whole. He conveys the feeling of someone you can't trust, but if you lived in Runeterra, especially in Bilgewater, you'd likely be tempted to see how far his wish-granting powers go. Also, his design is very unique. He's a big humanoid catfish in a suit and hat. And unlike Gragas, he's not a fat joke just for the sake of it. He's big and fat to symbolize what vices do to you. They slow you down, make you heavy. It's a really unique idea from Riot to represent addiction, along of course with the whole gluttony thing, since he eats people whole and his stomach has no limits. In early concepts, Tahm Kench had a more animalistic appearance, looking much more like a lanternfish like the one from Finding Nemo. It is a cool concept, but Riot decided to make him less animalistic because no one would trust the old version of him. Instead, now he dresses well and has a sharp tongue, to literally deceive people with his words. When he was reworked in 2021, his tongue became a key part of his kit, reflecting how he manipulates people, slowly consuming them before swallowing them entirely. But okay, going to the next champion, we have Jhin. And I don't even know where to start when talking about Jhin. This character has so much detail and so many things in his design that it's hard to pinpoint the best part. So let's start with, I don't know, his lore. In Jhin's lore, it's said that he was a serial killer operating in Ionia, and nobody knew his origins. Over several years, he killed numerous people in a series of extravagant murders that toyed with the bodies and the appearance of the victims. It was a level of cruelty so absurd that Ionia's officials couldn't believe a human was responsible. Many believed he was an evil spirit, a demon who killed for pure cruelty and pleasure, and that's how he earned the name Golden Demon. And after a long time, to be more precise, 4 years of pursuit, the King Cold-Warder was the one who managed to capture Jhin, all thanks to a trap set by Master Kushal, the father of Shen, who is also Zed's father, adoptive at least. It is mentioned that both of his sons were shocked to discover that all of this cruelty came from a human. Zed got really angry and wanted to kill Jhin right there, but Kushal said that the other wasn't allowed to interfere in matters that didn't involve spirits from the spiritual realm. Also, that's why the King Cold were called to hunt Jhin in the first place, since people thought that he was a spirit, a demon or something like that. Anyways, Jhin was imprisoned, but eventually released in secret by an influential figure from the Kashuri family, one of the richest and most powerful families in Ionia, with the sole intention of having him kill Noxians during the Noxian invasion. The problem is that nobody controls Jhin. He goes on killing anyone he wants, no matter what. And now, this assassin is losing the world, spreading what he sees as art. Anyway, Jhin has this awesome lore that I've summarized quite a bit because otherwise the video would be just about him. But you may be thinking, why is his design so insane? First of all, this champion is pure art. Just take a look at every scene he's in from the 2019's Awake music video. Every frame where Jhin is highlighted could be turned into a painting for a museum. His aesthetic is completely artistic, and you see that in the character itself. For example, his weapon simulates a fountain pen. He assembles and disassembles it during his W, where Jhin extends the barrel of his gun and expands his shot. His Q and E come from a compartment on Jin's shoulder, and his ultimate combines all these features. The gun and barrel extension increases range, and it connects with the shoulder compartment to add more impact to the shots, basically forming a grand opera with a theatrical curtain opening. And this even reflects in his damage. Even though the play starts slow in the first 3 acts, the last one is the most important, and the damage from Jin's ultimate is based on the target's missing health, and also the last shot is a guaranteed critical hit. Before he obtained his Kashuri weapons, Jhin carried out all of his assassinations using knives. In his lore, it's said that all of Runeterra might be just a canvas for the atrocity that is Kada Jin's art, and only he knows where the next breath stroke will fall, as if Runeterra is his painting and his weapon is the brush. In the recall of his Blood Moon skin, his gun is even turned into a brush. There are so many other details about him, seriously. I could make a 20-minute video just talking about him and all the lore details. Also, there is one super obvious thing I haven't mentioned yet, and that is Jin's compulsive relationship with the number 4, which is reflected everywhere in his kit. His Q bounces 4 times, he has the 4th attack, the 4th shot of his ultimate, everything ties back to the number 4. And a cool detail is that if you trace the letters J, H, I, N on your keyboard, it makes the shape of a 4. In the initial concepts, Jhin was very different. He was going to be a cyborg bounty hunter from Piltover, with an Old West style, because Riot wanted to create a champion with a sniper and a mechanic of earning bounties by killing specific enemy champions over time. They also wanted a jungler with ADC mechanics. In the end, the sniper champion design went to Jhin, and that Old West vibe became his release skin, High Noon Jhin, while the bounty hunter and ADC jungler mechanics were given to Kindred. And speaking of Kindred, they're simply the best representation of death I've ever seen, not just in the world of games, but in any kind of media. Usually, the personification of death is a sinister reaper with a scythe, a black cloak, and a skeletal body. It's a very common representation in modern media and pop culture. Overall, a well-established concept of death and passage to the afterlife. But instead of following this, Riot created one of the best character concepts I've ever seen in my life. Kindred are the spirits of death. They are the ones who lead the souls of the dead to the spiritual realm, guiding their passage to the afterlife, whether through the lamb's merciful arrow or the wolf's voracious fangs. They represent the duality of how people deal with death. Their concept starts from the moment someone is at death's door and sees them. At that point, the person decides whether to accept death and go peacefully with the lamb, or to fight the inevitable and suffer a painful death at the wolf's fangs. The idea of being a lamb and a wolf stems from the fact that they are extreme opposites, a prey and a predator, one black and the other white, as if they represent yin and yang, which in Chinese philosophy is the balance between good and evil. While the lamb has a serene and gentle voice, the wolf is aggressive aggressive and hostile almost all the time. While the Black Wolf wears the White Lamb's mask, the White Lamb wears the Black Wolf's mask, showing that despite their differences, they are still connected and inseparable. In the early design concepts for Kindred, they consider a more fairy tale inspired visual, with the lamb as a shepherd and the wolf circling her. Other versions showed a more tribal look, with a mask and staff instead of a bow and arrow. When the bow and arrow were added to the lamb's design, they experimented with making the bow less immediately recognizable and tried something more humanized in the lamb's clothes and body features, while the face remained very different. In the version that is on the screen right now, you can see something much closer to what we have in the game, with some changes to the mask, colors, and especially the wolf. There was even a concept where the wolf was like a shadow from Vex. A really cool idea, to be honest. Anyways, moving on to the next one, we have Ornn. Tropes are very common in Ornn's era, but one of them took a long time to appear, and that's the dwarf from medieval fantasy. Another thing that's very common at Riot is the subversion of those same tropes, and that's the case with our boy Ornn. The generic idea of a fantasy dwarf race combined with the concept of a forge god, like Hephaestus in Greek mythology, modified by Freljord's aesthetic, gives Ornn a very special touch. This subversion is even more interesting when you realize that Freljord's dominant colors are the cold ones, like white, grey and blue, while Ornn's primary color is red, which is completely on the warm side. This not only makes him visually stand out in the region, but also says a lot about his character. While most of Freljord seeks conflict and survival, Ornn focuses on creation, creativity and peace. He's just chill. Talking about subversion, Ornn has a very cute appearance, even though he has a sense of brutality. And this is a contrast with the fact that he is super grumpy and stubborn. But Ornn isn't just about subversion. Early on his development, he was supposed to look more like a fiery walrus, but they decided to switch to a ram, an animal that symbolizes sturdiness and stubbornness, which also makes sense in the environment he lives in. His silhouette, which could be simplified to a square, emphasized that sturdiness even more. When you look at him, it's almost instinctive to understand what the character does in game. He has two giant horns that are literally wider than his shoulders, plus they're shaped like runes and have fiery details at the tips, which immediately draw the attention and make you think this guy probably uses those to fight. And he does, so it's a good thing. Then you look down on his design and realize his hand is literally on fire, and he's holding a hammer in each hand, and one of those hammers is an anvil. With fire, hammers, and an anvil, you'll forge, and that's what he does in game 2. These choices create the feeling of a living furnace for him, making him simple, functional, robust, yet cute and dangerous, giving the character a very unique and instantly recognizable identity. And to be honest, the concept of a forge god as a giant fire ram is something incredible that I've never seen anything like before, even though I've seen the same elements in many other places. In the end, not only in this design, but in all of the other mentioned in this video, Riot truly did an impeccable job, which would definitely leave Ornn himself, in his pursuit of perfection, astonished.
Now this is what good looks like!